Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Well, you've all heard of Spider-Man, but have you heard of the pro-life Spider-Man? Well, today I'm going to have him on the program. Welcome, everybody, to the Mark Harrington Show. You can follow me on all the social media platforms and all the podcasting platforms. Leave a 5-star review, please, and share the podcast with all your friends. Let them know that we're out here talking about the premier issue that faces our nation. No, it's not immigration. No, not illegal immigration. It's not inflation. It's child killing, because a nation that kills its children has no future. Literally has no future. So we're going to be talking about the election. We've been doing that a lot on the program here, and my good friend and colleague, Maison Des Champs, is with us today. I've had Maison on before, and Maison is known for climbing buildings. He's a rock climber, but he heard the call of the Lord when he found out that babies were being killed in Washington, D.C. by an abortionist by the name of Cesare Santangelo. You might remember, I've talked about him a lot on the program. He's the one that kills the babies up to birth and even after birth. And some babies were retrieved from a sidewalk there in front of the D.C. Surgery Center. 5 of them were late term. Another 100 or so were not. And that led to a long series of events. And to this day, there has not been justice for these 5 children, nor has there been justice for the others. But that's how Maison was called into the work. He turned his rock climbing into building climbing. And that is not just regular buildings. We're talking about skyscrapers. And he does it for Jesus and the babies. Maison, thanks for being on the show. I love having you back.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
So I want to, before we get into the Trump controversy, because I know you're not going to vote for him, and I want to talk to you about that. But I want to talk a little bit about your climbing buildings and skyscrapers and stuff. Last time I talked to you, almost 2 years ago, you had just started out on this.
Yeah.
You've climbed a lot of buildings over those years. The most recent one that I thought was, they're all cool. Don't get me wrong. In fact, my grandson, CJ, he loves Spider-Man like any kid does. And I said, hey, listen, I know the pro-life Spider-Man. And I've showed video of you climbing buildings and stuff like that. I had the one that I love the most, which unfortunately you don't have much video from, is from the Sphere in Vegas. That's got to be the coolest building ever made, I think. But tell me how you got into this. I mentioned that you heard about this, the abortionist killing babies in D.C., and then take it from there real fast and tell us how you got to climbing buildings for the babies.
Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan, hunting and fishing. And then one day in the middle of my junior year, my dad said, hey, we're moving the whole family out to L.A. And so there wasn't very much hunting and fishing to do in L.A., so I got really into rock climbing and very quickly excelled at it. And that became my entire life. I would climb every single day. But one day I was sitting on my phone and I saw a picture of baby Harriet, and she was sitting in a Ziploc container with the smashed skull. And I thought to myself, I've called myself pro-life my entire life, but truly didn't understand what it meant to be pro-life. It means that right down the road from me, they're murdering babies, and I ought to do something about it. And as far as the climbing the skyscrapers thing goes, I stole the idea from a guy named Alain Robert. He's the French Spider-Man. And he would climb to protest in the name of climate change. And so I knew it worked. I knew I could do something with it. And so I decided to climb skyscrapers and raise money for these women who are in crisis pregnancy. And, now I've sort of shifted from that into more of activism. I still plan on doing some climbing maybe one day. We'll see. But, activism, I think, is just so important if we want to win.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to be active. Climbing these buildings can't be safe. To me, I watch you climbing these things. I'm thinking, man, I'm praying for you, brother, because one of them you were kind of like shimmying up a corridor, and there was nothing to put your feet up against. How did you do that? I
Yeah,
mean,
so
I
that
noticed on some of these, and in some of these, you're able to put your foot on different like steps and stuff like that. But one of them, you were just like going like this, like a real Spider-Man did. And I was like, I don't know how you did that, brother. Can you
yeah,
tell us?
yeah, that one was really funny. So it's a technique called stimming, and it's actually really easy to do it. I mean, you can see kids try to do it in between like door frames and stuff like that. But you do it for
Hmm.
500 feet, you get really
There you
tired.
are. Oh yeah,
And
so we got you on the video right now. If you guys are watching, I
yeah,
guess every so often there's a little bit of a cutaway for your foot,
a little bit,
but not
yeah,
much.
yeah. When we were
Man, oh
walking up,
man, brother.
we were walking
Go
up to the
ahead. Sorry,
base.
I just just
When we were walking up to the base, it was my buddy Tim and I was talking smack, and I said, 15 minutes up and down. And after about 100 feet, I was like, wow, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. And I ended up taking probably an hour to get to the top.
Man, I really don't know how those how do your feet stay secure against the sides on I know you got special shoes and stuff, but you're barehanded too, you don't even have gloves on, do you?
Yeah, it was a lot of practice and a lot of training. I've been doing this for, gosh,
Wow.
7 or 8 years, rock climbing, almost every day. And so if you do anything every day, you'll get pretty good at it.
Yeah, but still, I'm telling you that, it's pretty bold, brother. Your critics will say, "Oh, it's just some kind of media stunt." I say, "Who would do this? You're risking your life. You're risking your life. You're literally risking your life. Who would do this for a media stunt?
Yeah.
Not you, I don't think."
Well, I would say all activism is kind of about knowing how to use the media.
Kind
But
of true.
yeah, so but
Absolutely.
one of the points I want to prove with it is that, we have to fight for these children. If there's babies being murdered right down the street from us, uh,
Mhm.
we should do something about it, even if that costs us our life. Scripturally speaking, I mean, you see what Paul went through to share the gospel, and he said to live is
Mhm.
Christ and to die is gain. So, if I am risking
Mhm.
my life, what do I really have to fear if I have Jesus?
Well, and listen, you've brought a lot of attention to the issue. You've been on a lot of programs, Tucker Carlson, other national TV programs, been interviewed all across the world. You were recently on Dinesh D'Souza's podcast, and not because of the climbing, because of your position on Donald Trump. And I kind of want to get into that now. And then we can end with talking about these constitutional amendments, which, of course, are facing us here in the next couple of weeks. You made a pretty big splash when you came out and said you weren't going to vote for Trump. People that follow me know that I am voting for Trump, and I made that case to those who listen and follow the program. So, what is it that led you to decide you're not going to vote for Trump?
Well, I was really excited to vote for Trump, if I'm being honest. I couldn't vote in 2016. I wasn't old enough. 2020, I voted for Trump, and I was very excited to do it again. I've been to Mar-a-Lago. He sat two tables behind me. Um,
Yeah, okay,
but what
nice.
made me not want to vote for Trump is what you said in the beginning of the show. The most important issue facing our nation right now is abortion, plain and simple. And nations that murder children, they will not survive long. We
Hmm.
can't uh, have a fruitful nation if we take our children and we murder them. And I'm not an
Sure.
abolitionist. I'm not. I'm incremental. But the way incrementalism works is the needle has to move incrementally in the right direction. And I believe that Trump, he's been a transactional pro lifer. He did
That's
overturn Roe
true.
v. Wade, and that was
Yep.
awesome. But he did that. He promised to put these judges on the Supreme Court as a way to win our votes. And now that we've told him right away that we're going to vote for him no matter what, simply because he's the lesser of two evils, he has stopped promising transactions. In fact, he's promising transactions to the other side. If you look, they changed the Republican Party platform from supporting marriage between man and a woman to now it's open for gay marriage. He changed the Republican Party platform from supporting life at conception to now, supporting abortion up to 27 weeks. And these are evil, evil things. Not to mention, if we talk about his promise to make IVF federally funded, I mean, that is a cat that we do not want let out of the bag. Because if we're pro-life and we believe life begins at conception, then we have to recognize that IVF destroys life. And right now, the greatest barrier keeping people from doing IVF is money. And so we subsidize this. We're going to get more of it, and we're going to have more destruction of God's image bearers. Now, I recognize Kamala is bad, and more babies will die under Kamala. But we can't be short-sighted and only vote for lesser of two evils because, I mean, look what happened to gay marriage. Plain and simple. It's the perfect example. Very quickly, gay marriage became a non-issue. We said that's not an issue that's that important to us. And now I don't know of a single Republican candidate that is trying to fight against gay marriage. And the same thing is doomed to happen with abortion if we're only choosing these lesser of two evils. If you only choose the lesser of two evils, that is all you will ever get. And if we as incrementalists, we put a line in the sand and we say, don't go past this, and then they go past this for the rest of our existence as a movement, which will be very short, they will know that we're bluffing.
And listen, my position on Trump, I do agree with you on everything you said, except I come to a different conclusion. And that conclusion is we should vote for Trump. And here's why. Because every election cycle, and see, I've been around a while and I've faced situations not like this one exactly, where you have a pro-life candidate that says certain things and we vote for him in hopes that he gets in and puts somebody on the Supreme Court and hopefully reverses Roe versus Wade and continues to move the ball down the field. And this year is a little bit different, I have to admit, because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which threw it back to the states. Not to say there isn't an abortion or an issue for the federal government to be involved in, because I've made a case for that, of course, on this program. So things are a little different in a post-Roe world in that we're losing. We've lost seven of these constitutional amendments. We're bound to lose a few more, probably coming up this November. And Donald Trump, as you say, rightly, is a transactional leader in that he sees abortion as a losing political issue. And Mason, right now, politically, it is. I'm sorry to tell you, it is right now. That doesn't mean it has to be. And guys like you and I are fighting to make it not that. But he's just one of those guys is putting his finger in the air and saying, well, I can't get elected unless I do this, that, and the other. And so I look at it this way. Now, hold on. He's a one-time president. He's only got one term. My view is this. Kamala Harris is so destructive, not only to the pro-life movement, but to our country. I'm not sure we can even survive, nor will we have another election, possibly. The house is on fire. We need somebody who's a first-class firefighter, not an arsonist, to put out the fire. And that's so I look at it as we are in really, really desperate times, and it calls for a decision, which I agree is a very difficult one, but it's different than in the past years, where the threat to our democracy, when it comes to every single thing that we believe as Americans, our institutions, our freedoms, freedom of speech, are all on the table when it comes to Kamala Harris. And to me, even though I see Donald Trump as a candidate that is not pro-life, that is just trying to get elected, I feel like we've got to stop bad things from happening. And I don't want to be digging out of 4 to 8 years of Kamala Harris. I just don't think we'll survive as a nation. And I don't know if the pro-life movement will survive as a nation, as a movement.
And I don't believe that we should try to preserve our nation by sacrificing unborn children. I mean, it's one of those things, like I said on the Dinesh D'Souza show, Stonewall Jackson has a good quote. It's actually a rendition of Quincy Adams, but he said, "Duty is ours, consequences is God's." And I think that we need to stand for the children regardless of whether or not they're going to throw us in the gulag or they're going to put a gun to our head. Plain and
Which
simple.
they might. They
And
might. I think
we got to be
you and I
willing.
both know people that you and I both know people that are in the gulag right now, and Harrison will do more of the same. I'm sure of that. And let me make my final case on this, and then I'll let you finish this up. We know what we'll get with Trump more than likely. We'll get what we got the first time around. And we're not just electing a president, we are electing an administration that's made up of other people. And although Donald Trump is not, ideologically pro-life, he's not going to the mat on abortion, as he wasn't really in the first time around. He can sign executive orders, which matter and save babies. He can appoint federal judges, which is gigantic. If you think about the federal judiciary and the Supreme Court, which, by the way, we still have to preserve our majority there. He does have the ability to sign or veto laws that come to his desk. And if the Democrats get the majority in the Congress, they're going to put that Women's Health Protection Act. Possibly they're going to try to pass that, and Donald Trump would probably veto it. I don't know. I mean, he says he won't veto, an abortion ban, so who knows what he's going to do? But at least we have a little bit of a shot with the guy. I just think the house is on fire. We have to do everything we can. I agree with you. A nation that kills its children cannot abate the judgment of God without ending it. I get it. But we need to buy a little breathing room here so we can regroup as a movement and come back in 2026 and 28 and reclaim the GOP. Because to me, a vote against Trump alone is just a protest vote. We need a longer strategy than just saying I'm not going to vote for Trump. We need to primary these people. We need to run against these pro-lifers in name only, get them out of office, and we need to reclaim the GOP, which includes the platform and the front runner in 2028. So I'm with you, but I say long view. We've got to win back the Republican Party and the American people. So go ahead, give me your responses to that.
Yeah. Long view, voting for Trump will not regain us the Republican Party for the movement. It will do just the opposite. It's affirming bad behavior. We're showing these political candidates that abortion is a non-issue, and we're telling them that it's okay to completely abandon us. And it will make us politically homeless entirely. I mean, if we're not already.
Good.
I mean, you're watching these politicians fold left and right. Vance folded, Carrie Lake folded. And yes, Trump gave it to the states, but then states like Arizona decided to enforce their abortion ban. And Carrie Lake got a phone call from the Trump team because a year ago you can watch footage of her supporting this ban, stating that all Arizonans need to do is enforce the laws that are already on the books. She gets her phone call. Next thing you know, she's campaigning against the same ban that she supported a year prior. I think it does not matter if a Republican wins if they've lost their saltiness. If you don't stand for conservatism, you're not a conservative. You're a slow liberal.
Certainly it's a risk that we're taking by following and voting for Trump by putting him in, because you're right. The pro-life issue may be over once he's in there. Then again, depending on who the front runner is in 28, which we'll know in 2 years, whether it be a J.D. Vance, who will probably be running, or Ron DeSantis, which I think could be an opportunity to reclaim the Republican Party, because I believe he is a true blue, hardcore pro-life activist. I think he really believes in that. But again, it's a gamble either way, in my view. And I feel like not voting for Trump, you get Harrison, that's just more dead babies. And I'm trying to slow down the killing, not accelerate.
You see, I'm looking at the babies that are going to die in perpetuity. And as far as regaining the Republican Party, our only power as a voting class is our vote. And again, if we just give it away to anybody just because they have an R next to their name and that they're just a little bit better than the other guy, the bar for these political candidates will only be just a little bit better than the other guy. when they come out in support of abortion, we have to stop it and tell them that, no, you can't do this. And it gets into sort of like biblical territory of, I like to use, this is one of my favorite verses, but it says, he who spares the rod hates his child. And I think, our vote as a voting people, we can't spare the rod on our politicians. It's affirming bad behavior.
Well, listen, I don't disagree with you there because I believe that politicians don't do the right thing unless they see the light and they see the light when they feel the heat. So I get you on that. Uh, but every election cycle, we're faced with this dilemma, whether it be a Trump who, really took us in one direction, or whether it's going to be like, another Republican candidate who isn't going to meet every particular thing that we agree with. And we're left with this decision. How can we make the greatest how can we bring about the greatest moral good in a particular election cycle? And for me, it's not about voting for the lesser of two evils, it's about voting to lessen evil. And every cycle is really about that because we are always voting for someone who's not perfect.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
do you think of that?
I agree with that. We're always voting for an imperfect human, but Trump is flat out promising us that he's going to create a government entitlement program to destroy image bearers of God through IVF. And once that
Absolutely
cat is
troubling.
out of the bag, you can look historically at how well we've done at getting rid of federal entitlement programs. I mean, the statistics speak for themselves. This thing will be on the books for at least until our nation collapses in the next 20, 30 years, however long it takes. And
Mhm.
I can't stand for that. And Kamala will probably do the same. But at the very least, the Republican Party will learn that they cannot abandon their voting base of pro-life candidates. I mean, we have to be intelligent. As a coalition, our number one job is to leverage our voting power to influence the politicians and their policies. And if we're not doing that, then why do we exist as a coalition? I mean, truly.
No, absolutely agree. And here's the thing. I have been very outspoken on Donald Trump. I've been very critical of him. Every time he shoots from the hip and says something stupid on abortion along with JD Vance, I'm the first to rebuke him. Because I think we can do both. We don't like there's a lot of people in our movement that you're mentioning who will just look the other way and never say a word when he comes out and says, "I will veto any ban on abortion that comes to my desk." And there's just crickets amongst most of the pro-life movement. I'm not that way because I'll rebuke him, but I'll have to make the case, despite that, that in this situation, I'm still going to vote for him. I think we can do both. I know it's a hard line to walk, but I'm not one of those who's just going to just shut up, sit down, and be quiet and throw the vote for Donald Trump just because he's better than the other person. We have to be clear about what our positions are because the pro-life movement, if nothing else, we should be truth tellers. We have a prophetic mission to tell the truth about abortion, and we cannot cave on that. I think we can do both. That's my view. I appreciate anybody who has a different view based on their own conscience and what they think is best this election cycle. We face it every 4 years. It seems a little more pronounced this time than last. And I still am going to do what I'm going to do. And I appreciate your position as well on this. If you will, I want to switch gears. Let's talk about the abortion amendments real quick here. I know you're really involved. You're there in Nevada. You guys are facing one, right?
Yep, yep.
Colorado's facing one. We've got Missouri. We've got Montana, South Dakota, Florida. Am I leaving anything out? Maryland, New York, those are goners. But I've been involved mostly in Florida and in Missouri. Tell us what you're doing to try to get to defeat these amendments.
Well, I've been encouraging people to vote no. In Arizona, we were auditing ballots alongside Arizona Right to Life and Red State Reform through Apologia Church. knocking on doors, whatever we can do to get the word out that these amendments are going to legalize abortion to the day of birth. And it's going to make it a constitutional right, which means every police officer, every first responder who swears to protect their state constitution is swearing the oath to protect child killing. And that is a very, very evil thing that we want to keep out. So, been encouraging everybody to vote no, save these children, these babies that are having their skulls crushed and their limbs ripped off, because that's the truth of what abortion does, especially at 9 months. It crushes skulls and rips limbs from little innocent babies.
And it looks like there are going to be 9 of these on the ballot this November. 2 of them, like I said, New York and Maryland, those are inconsequential for the most part because abortion is legal up to the very moment of birth in those 2 states. But the others aren't. And we are 0 for 7, friends. We cannot go 0 for 7 this time. We've got to win a few of these. And I'm looking at some of the polling in some places like Nebraska. I was just on the phone with our counterpart there, and it looks like that might be a winnable one. We've got some good news coming out of South Dakota. Florida, there was some polling last week showing that the yes side only had 46%. That was according to the New York Times Siena poll, so it's probably a decent poll. But there's been polls all over the place in Florida. We've been throwing in Florida. I know you're heading down there. Tell us about the Florida battle, because I think that's the primary one. I mean, they're all important, but when you have 33,000 abortions that were committed in Florida a year ago before the heartbeat law went into effect, you can say that's a pretty big state. We've got to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Florida stands for at the moment is like the last stronghold of conservatism. And so it's very important that we win Florida and we show that this is, in fact, a real conservative issue that conservatives need to care about. Thankfully, Florida requires, I believe it's 60% of the vote for it to pass.
That is correct.
Whereas other states, it's closer to 50. But I still believe that with all of the evil that's out there today, that it's going to be a close battle. Thankfully, groups like Operation Save America have been down there for a long time. My plans were postponed because of the hurricane, but I'll be back probably next week down there to help out and try to stop this from passing.
Well, we'll be joining you too, friends. If you would, Mr. Producer, pop up the OSA Facebook piece there about the event there in Florida. Rescheduled because of the hurricane. I was going to head down there with 15 people. We rescheduled. We're going to be showing up on the 21st. That's a week from, that's Monday the 21st. Going to be there a week with 15 others, going door to door, canvassing, going out on the streets, going to the college campuses, going to the overpasses. We're doing all kinds of stuff there. So we're getting our opportunity to go back. I hope there's not another hurricane. I was looking out in the Atlantic today on weather.com thinking, oh no, is there no one coming? Here's the thing. I don't care if a hurricane's coming or not. We're coming this time. We're not going to postpone our plans. I mean, we're going no matter what happens. So I look forward to seeing you there, Maison. I appreciate you being on the program. Maison Des Champs has been my guest today. And friends, you need to support this guy. You can go to the website, antiabortionfront.org. Once again, antiabortionfront.org. Support Maison and his mission. A true blue activist, called of God, not just to climb skyscrapers. That would be enough. That'd be enough for me to support him. But all the good work he's doing around the country, drawing attention to this. And by the way, Maison, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to show the victims, too. I don't think we can talk about abortion without showing them. I mean, honestly, that's just our position here, always has been. I really don't understand how people can do it without it. But, hey, I'm glad you're in the fight doing that. I look forward to seeing you down in Florida. Friends, if you can support him, go to antiabortionfront.org. Send Maison a gift. He's going to be traveling to Florida to be with us with the Operation Save America event. Hopefully he's going to join us next spring on our Justice Ride. We're trying to get him to come out on that as well. He is a kindred spirit in the fight to end child killing. So, Mason, thanks for taking the time to be on the show today. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Well, friends, you know my position on voting for Donald Trump. I've made it clear on the program here. Me, Mark Harrington, that is personal Mark Harrington, not as the president of Created Equal. I'm saying vote for Donald Trump. I had Mason on today just because I like the banter back and forth. And it's obviously an issue within the pro-life movement and some of the Republican Party and conservatives across the board, others feeling like they cannot vote for Trump this time. And so I wanted to bring on Mason because he's one of those that feels that way. I'm voting for him. I live in Ohio. He's up by 7 points. He's going to win Ohio. Despite that, my neighbors, they've surrounded me with Harris wall signs. So this year I said, well, listen, I'm not going to take it anymore. So I went ahead and got this gigantic Trump sign and put it in my front yard. I've never done that. In the two elections with Donald Trump, I've never even put a Trump sign in my yard. But this time I got tired of it. And I said, listen, if they can do it, I can do it. So this sign is giant. This thing's like 4 by 6 in my front yard. It says Trump, Marino, Lear. Of course, Bernie Moreno is running for U.S. Senate here in Ohio. And that is a key battleground, a key race. So I'm voting for Trump. I made it clear. I'm not going to be bashful about it. But I respect people like Mason who aren't going to. Next week, we head out, as I said, to the event down in Florida. We'll be going to Operation Save America's event, but we'll also go be doing door-to-door down in the state of Florida. Be praying for us that no hurricane comes to the state during that period of time. Also, a week after that, that is beginning October 27th through Election Day, our LED billboard trucks will be hitting the road as part of our Battleground States tour. We're going to be going to states in the Midwest, including Missouri and South Dakota, Nebraska, some key battlegrounds for the constitutional amendment and for the presidential election. We're going to about 5 or 6 states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, other states like that. So Arizona, other states. So be in prayer for us. And friends, if you can support the work here at Created Equal, please go to createdequal.org. That's createdequal.org/donate and give to our voter educational project. And that'll help educate people, voters, on abortion before November 5th, because early voting has begun in a lot of states, including Ohio. So, friends, we're making a big difference this time. We're heading to Florida. We're going on the battleground states with our LED trucks. We're doing everything we literally can. We're running ads in places like Florida, TV ads in Florida, Missouri, now Nebraska. So your money's going to a good cause. We're a lean, mean fighting machine here at Created Equal. We don't have a whole bunch of overhead. It's going right to the bottom line of fighting child killing. So please send us a support check if you can. Again, go to createdequal.org/donate. We'll see you next time. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, America, to bless God.
You've been listening to Mark Harrington, your radio activist. For more information on how to make a difference for the cause of life, liberty, and justice, go to createdequal.org. To follow Mark, go to markharringtonshow.com. Be sure to tune in next time for your marching orders in the culture war.